August 28, 2005. Hurricane Katrina is a Category 5 in the Gulf of Mexico.
Hurricane Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina.
The magnitude of the situation is untenable. It's just heartbreaking.
Mayor Ray Nagin orders the first mandatory evacuation in New Orleans history. The Superdome opens as a shelter of last resort. Buses line up. Some neighborhoods empty. Others don't. Katrina makes landfall the next morning as a Category 3, weaker than feared. Initial reports say the city dodged the worst. Meteorologists begin dialing back the concern.
Continues to really be a Category 5 hurricane, a very strong hurricane, the strongest it can actually be. And all you have to do is take a look at the satellite picture. It's not often that you see an eye of a hurricane this well defined. Notice how concentric the clouds are. That is as many clouds along the north, east, west, and south side of the storm.
Then the levees start breaking, not during the storm, after it. By the time the wind stops, 53 separate breaches will open across the flood protection system. 80% of a major American city will go underwater. The storm will already be in Tennessee. Katrina did not destroy New Orleans. The storm had already moved north by the time the city began to flood. What destroyed New Orleans was 40 years of assumptions about what the water could do, and a levee system that was never built to survive the storm it was always going to face. New Orleans sits in a bowl. The city is surrounded on three sides by water. Lake Pontchartrain to the north, the Mississippi River curving along the south, Lake Borgne to the east. Half the metropolitan area sits below sea level. In some neighborhoods, the ground is 6 to 8 feet below the surface of the lake that borders it. The only thing keeping the water out is the levee system. The city does not drain when it floods, it fills. Every drop that enters has nowhere to go but deeper. The pumping stations that move water up and out of New Orleans are among the most powerful in the world, capable of moving 24 billion gallons per day at full operating capacity. They have to be. Gravity works against the city every time it rains.
These walls are going to start coming in. The front bumper's coming off.
This vulnerability is not a secret. In 2002, the Times-Picayune ran a 5-part investigative series titled Washing Away. The reporting team spent months interviewing engineers, floodplain managers, and emergency officials. The series predicted, with near-exact accuracy, what would happen if a major hurricane made a direct strike on the city. It named the 9th Ward. It named the Superdome. It named the number of people who would be left without a way out. It named the specific failure points in the levee network most likely to give way first. In 2004, FEMA and Louisiana State University conducted a disaster simulation called Hurricane Pam. The exercise modeled a slow-moving Category 3 storm making a direct hit on New Orleans. It predicted catastrophic flooding across 200,000 structures, up to 60,000 deaths in a worst-case scenario, and total collapse of emergency response infrastructure within the first 72 hours. The simulation identified the specific failure modes that would make a conventional rescue operation impossible: blocked evacuation routes, overwhelmed shelters, and a communications grid that would go silent when power failed. The report sat in a filing cabinet. Nobody acted on it. The city kept sinking. New Orleans subsided throughout the 20th century as wetlands were drained for development, groundwater was extracted, and organic soils compacted under the weight of construction. In some neighborhoods, the ground was dropping at the rate of an inch or more per year. Flood protection designed for one elevation becomes structurally inadequate as the ground beneath it continues to drop. Louisiana was losing 25 to 35 square miles of coastal wetlands every year. Intact wetlands slow and reduce storm surge before it reaches the levee line. Without them, water reaches the city faster and with more force. By 2005, decades of land loss meant there was almost nothing between the Gulf of Mexico and New Orleans but open water and disappearing marsh. Engineers knew, hydrologists knew, the people who built the levees knew. The question was never whether the system would fail, it was when.
And people who now have nothing and no place to go swear they've rode out their last hurricane.
My dear girl.
What happened?
The house just split in half.
Your house split in half?
Right here on Hollyham, Bayview, back, We got up in the
The last time New Orleans flooded at scale was Hurricane Betsy in September 1965. Betsy made landfall as a Category 3, pushed a storm surge into the lower Ninth Ward, and killed 76 people in Louisiana. It was the most destructive hurricane in American history at that point.
At 11:46, all power fails at the New Orleans Weather Bureau, and the wind gauge blows off the roof.
In its aftermath, Congress funded the Lake Pontchartrain and Vicinity Hurricane Protection Project, the levee network that would define the city's flood defense for the next 40 years. That system was designed to withstand a fast-moving Category 3 storm. Betsy was the ceiling. For 40 years, every building code, every flood insurance map, and every emergency management plan in New Orleans was calibrated to that benchmark. The assumption was simple. If the city could survive another Betsy, it would survive. Katrina was not another Betsy. The Hurricane Protection Project was authorized in 1965. Construction began in the late 60s and continued through the 90s. By 2005, 40 years after authorization, the system was still incomplete. The Army Corps of Engineers' own internal review, released in June 2006, concluded that the project had been chronically underfunded over its lifetime, and that the constructed system was never capable of delivering the protection level it was designed and advertised to provide. Funding shortfalls slowed progress over 3 decades. The Corps had originally planned massive floodgates at the mouths of the drainage canals, structures that would seal the canals off from Lake Pontchartrain during a storm surge event. Residents along the lakefront didn't want them. They would obstruct views. They would restrict boating access. So the Corps built floodwalls instead. Cheaper, faster, more vulnerable. These were eye walls, concrete slabs mounted on steel sheet pilings driven into the soil. The pilings were supposed to anchor deep enough to resist the lateral pressure of rising water. In many sections, they didn't. The soil beneath New Orleans is soft, porous clay. The 2006 Army Corps review found that the walls had been designed without accounting for the reduced shear strength of the soil at their foundations, a calculation error that independent engineers had flagged in prior assessments. The assessments were noted. The designs were not changed. The walls were built anyway. By August 2005, New Orleans had a levee system designed for a storm that happened in 1965, built to incomplete specifications, and anchored in soil that could not hold it. The standard it was meant to meet had never been updated. The infrastructure had never caught up to the risk. Betsy set the ceiling. Nobody raised it. Katrina forms over the Bahamas on August 23rd as Tropical Depression 12. Within hours, it becomes a tropical storm. By August 25th, it is a Category 1 hurricane, making landfall on the Florida coast before entering the Gulf of Mexico. Then the water takes over. Sea surface temperatures in the Gulf are running 2 degrees above average. Katrina enters a thermal reservoir with nothing to slow it down. In 36 hours, it intensifies from Category 3 to Category 5, sustained winds of 175 miles per hour, a central pressure of 902 millibars, one of the lowest ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin. The storm weakens slightly before landfall, dropping back to Category 3. But its size has not changed. Katrina is 400 miles wide. Tropical storm force winds extend outward 230 miles from the center. It makes landfall near Burras, Louisiana on the morning of August 29th. Maximum sustained winds at the center, 125 miles per hour.
I mean, I know people got it worse because the lady that lived in front of the hotel, she was a nice old lady. She lost her entire brick house and it was washed away.
And it came to the top of the bottom floor window.
What's the situation with your buildings now?
They're gone.
The eye passes east of New Orleans. The city experiences the weaker western side of the storm. Along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the storm surge reaches 28 feet, the highest ever recorded in the United States. Entire coastal towns are erased. Waveland, Mississippi, a city of 7,000 people, is struck by a surge that reaches the rooflines of 2-story homes. In New Orleans, the surge pushes into Lake Pontchartrain from the east. The lake rises. The drainage canals connecting the lake to the interior of the city begin filling with water driven by sustained hydraulic pressure from below. The levees were not overtopped by wind-driven waves. They were pushed from beneath by pressure they were never designed to hold. The 17th Street Canal breaches at 6:30 in the morning, 2 hours after landfall. The flood wall does not overtop. It collapses. The sheet pilings tip away from the canal as the soil beneath them liquefies. Water pours through a gap several hundred feet wide into the Lakeview neighborhood. The London Avenue Canal fails in two places. Gentilly floods. City Park goes underwater. The Industrial Canal, which had also breached during Betsy 40 years earlier, collapses into the lower Ninth Ward. A wall of water sweeps through streets where residents are still in their attics. By mid-morning, people in the Ninth Ward are chopping through their own ceilings with axes to stay above the rising water. By midday, 80% of the city is submerged. In some areas, the flood reaches 20 feet. Entire houses sit below the water line. The water is not draining, it is filling. Street by street, block by block, because Lake Pontchartrain is pouring directly into the bowl, and there is nothing left to stop it. The storm is already in Tennessee. 53 separate levee and floodwall failures are documented across the metro area. The breaches happen in sequence. Once one section gives way, pressure shifts to the next weak point. The system does not fail all at once. It unravels, and the water keeps coming. The Louisiana Superdome holds 26,000 people at its peak. Power fails within hours of landfall. The roof partially tears away in two sections, letting rain into the upper decks.
The city is also completely in the dark. It's hard to believe New Orleans, a vibrant city, is now a ghost town. It looks like something out of a doomsday scenario.
Water and food supplies run critically low within 48 hours. The temperature inside climbs above 90 degrees. The sewage systems stop functioning. The New Orleans Convention Center, which was never designated as an official shelter, fills with an estimated 10,000 people who walked there from flooded neighborhoods carrying whatever they could. There is no food. There is no water. There is no official presence for 4 days. FEMA Director Michael Brown tells CNN on September 1st that the agency has only just become aware that people are stranded at the convention center.
I will tell you this, though. Every person in that convention center, we just learned about that today. And so I have directed that we have all available resources to get to that convention center to make certain that they have the food and water, the medical care that they need.
Sir, you're not telling me.
Take care of those bodies that are there.
Sir, you're not telling me you just learned that the folks at the convention center didn't have food and water until today, are you? You had no idea they were completely cut off?
Paula, the federal government did not even know about the convention center people until today.
The convention center is 4 blocks from the French Quarter. It is not hidden. Meanwhile, the United States Coast Guard launches the largest search and rescue operation in American history. 33,500 people pulled from rooftops and floodwater in the first week, by helicopter, by boat, by hand. Petty Officer Second Class David Lewald logs over 40 rescue hoists in 72 hours. In the 7th Ward, a retired school teacher named Milvertha Hendricks waits 4 days on her roof before a private boat reaches her. The official vehicle for reaching her neighborhood, a National Guard convoy, is turned back 3 times by flooded roads. She is 83 years old. She survives. Abdul Rahman Zaitoun, a Syrian-American painting contractor, chose to stay when his family evacuated. After the flooding began, he paddled a second-hand aluminum canoe through the submerged streets for days, pulling elderly residents from second-floor windows, delivering water to people trapped in their homes, feeding animals stranded on rooftops with no way down. He knew the streets. He had a canoe. He went. Across rural Louisiana, hunters and fishermen loaded flatboats onto trailers and drove toward the water rather than away from it. They navigated flooded intersections by reading the tops of stop signs. They reached neighborhoods where federal rescue assets had not appeared and would not appear for days. The official response did not reach the convention center until September 2nd, 96 hours after the flooding began. People died in that gap, not from the storm, but from heat, from dehydration, from waiting in a city the government had not yet arrived to help. For 1 week, a major American city was functionally on its own. 1,833 people die, 135 are never found. More than 1 million people are displaced, the largest internal displacement in the United States since the Dust Bowl. Damage reaches $125 billion in 2005. The National Flood Insurance Program accumulates $17 billion in debt from Katrina claims alone. The levee system is rebuilt at a cost of $14.5 billion, redesigned from the ground up for a Category 5 surge event.
The Army Corps of Engineers is spending $14.3 billion to bolster New Orleans' hurricane protection system.
Do I feel safe? Do I think the Corps of Engineers has done enough to protect this city, to protect this area? No.
Reconstruction takes 6 years. The city's population, which stood at 484,000 before the storm, reached approximately 383,000 by 2023. The city remains smaller than it was the morning before landfall. The lower Ninth Ward, 40 years after Betsy and 20 years after Katrina, remains visibly incomplete. Vacant lots where houses once stood have grown over with grass. FEMA is reorganized. Emergency management doctrine in the United States is rewritten around the assumption that a major American city can go offline entirely, and the federal government may not arrive for days. Every variable that made Katrina catastrophic, the bowl geography, the aging levees, the storm's size, the Gulf's temperature, was documented and known before August 29, 2005. The city did not drown because no one saw it coming. It drowned because seeing it coming was not the same as being ready. The Army Corps of Engineers' own review called it a failure of engineering, not of nature. The levees were not overwhelmed by a storm beyond any reasonable expectation. They failed against a storm they had been built, however inadequately, to face. After Katrina, the rebuilt system cost $14.5 billion and was completed in 2011. It is rated for a 100-year storm surge, the standard the original system was always supposed to meet and never did. New Orleans is still in its bowl. Lake Pontchartrain is still higher than the streets. The Gulf of Mexico is warmer now than it was on August 29, 2005. The next storm is already forming.